Gentlemen, start your engines. And the crowd goes nuts. Rumble, young man, rumble. Ah! You know, I tried fasten your seatbelts. Ladies and gentlemen, man your battle station. Cricket.
You know, we know it's coming, and then you'll give it to us.
I get like, oh yeah, I get really excited. I started to say, let's get ready to rumble.
Welcome to the Ring Podcast, and a very warm welcome to our guest, the one and only Mr. Michael Buffer.
Welcome to the Kingdom Arena, Boulevard City, Riyadh, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We are moments away from boxing history. The fighters are in the ring. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Michael, how are you?
Good to be here. I'm fine, thank you.
You still love this just as much as you ever have, don't you? I saw you in Dubai a couple of weeks ago. There is no stopping you still.
Absolutely. The bottom line is I am and always have been a fan. So for me, it's just a double treat to work, especially to work at my age, and then to do what I do, step out of the ring and watch the fight.
As you say, you're a fan, and with that in mind, I'm sure you would have first picked up the Ring magazine. When, do you think?
Wow. I probably in the middle 50s as a kid. I can remember my dad letting me stay up late to watch. The very first fight I remember was the rematch with Jersey Joe Walcott and Rocky Marciano. And that would be early 50s, like maybe 52 or something. I was probably 8 years old. And my father had given me this big story about how Jersey Joe, who, remember, he was 37 when he won the title. And that was considered really old. And he looked old at the time. And now we remember Lennox at 37 and Vladimir at 37. And they just look so fit and so prime. And really, so much has changed in the way fighters train today. But anyway, so I felt as though this was like a rematch, and that Jersey Joe had done. I was told like this. I'm living in Philadelphia now. Jersey Joe Walcott was from Camden, New Jersey, right across the river. So he was like one of our own, and he was the underdog, and he was ahead on points in the first fight, and then he got knocked out late in the fight, and then in this fight he got knocked out in the first round. And as a kid, my heart was broken, but I became a fan.
And particularly in those days, the Ring magazine, it was just so important because there was no footage.
Yeah,
you could listen to it on the radio if you wanted to catch it
live. Didn't have the internet.
There's no highlights.
Yeah, right. It was TV and radio and word of mouth and newspapers and Ring magazine. Because of the nature of publishing and everything, it was basically a month behind, but it told you everything about fighters that were around today. And in those days, you only had, 8 divisions legitimately, and all undisputed champions. And it was a very exciting time. And when I was a kid, Sugar Ray Robinson he was past his prime, but he was still fighting as a prime fighter, when he won those 5 middleweight titles in the 50s. And it was quite an exciting time to read about these guys. And I can remember every time we used to take driving vacations where we would drive across the country in our 49 Hudson and see the country. And I was always allowed to go and buy 4 or 5 magazines to take with me, and then just read them and reread them and everything. And of course, I was a baseball fan as a kid, and football, and I would get the Ring, because and that's how I learned about, in those days, it would be a young Floyd Patterson and the later stages of Sugar Ray Robinson and all his great title fights with Fulmer and Graziano and that sort of thing. And I became a fan of the magazine.
So fast forward a few years, what were you thinking the first time you got a telephone call and it's somebody from the Ring saying, Michael, we'd like to do a feature on you? That must have been a moment.
Yeah, it really is. When whether it's a writer or somebody that's freelancing, and they wanted to put it in Ring, or there'd be some photos of me in Ring with comments or something. It just always blew me away that the Ring, it's the Bible of boxing. It's the gold standard. The famous writers and the legendary publisher and editor, I think it was like Nat Fleischman, is that right?
Nat Fleischer.
Yeah. And these are like Hall of Fame legends. And the thing I always admired was, we have all these belts today, but the one belt that always stands out is that old-fashioned looking belt, that Ring belt. And it's the classic boxing belt that makes you think of John L. Sullivan and Gentleman Jim Corbett and Jack Johnson and Tunney and Dempsey, that sort of thing. And it's classic, and it's such tradition behind it.
And Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone made sure that.
It's really funny because I was thinking about things that I wanted to say today at the press conference to set it up, and the greatest title in all of sports, of course, is heavyweight champion of the world. Even if it's a fictionalized character like Apollo Creed and Rocky Balboa.
Absolutely.
People know who that is.
Yeah.
And every generation has heavyweight champions. Recently we have an undisputed heavyweight champion. We lost one of the belts, but it's so funny. It took 24 years between Lennox and the Fury Usyk fight, number one, to give us an undisputed world champion, and have that ring belt passed on and have legitimacy to it for undisputed. And but every generation has a hero. I mean, you're in the business. So if I were to say to you, Dempsey, Tunney, the Brown Bomber, Rocky Marciano, Floyd Patterson, Cassius Marcellus Clay, then becoming Muhammad Ali, the most famous fighter in the world, at the time of his popularity, everybody knows those names. They're classics. And if I were to name different middleweight champions or flyweight champions or something, like maybe you heard about it, but everybody knows those heavyweight champions. It's forever.
It really is. I mean, it's like holding an office, being heavyweight champion, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always feel like it's like being president. You have to take that statesman-like quality to it. Individuals are different. They won't all do it the same way, but Lennox is here, and you just see him walking around and you just think, God, he's an impressive guy.
Yeah,
isn't
he is, right.
So you're in this position now, and you have been for a long time, whereby it's not really a big fight unless Michael Buffer is there, which is just an amazing thing to be able to. You wouldn't say it yourself, but it's true. Everybody starts somewhere, though. Mm-hmm. So where did it start?
Well, it all began watching the fights with my oldest son. He's of my two sons, he's the bigger sports fan, Michael Patrick. And a ring announcer gave a split decision, and after he gave the first two scores, you knew who won. So it took away that drama where, when you have a split decision, fighter A, fighter B, and then you own the building like a church. It becomes quiet because you're going to say, for the winner, by split decision, pause, wait, and then you go, and new, or and still, whatever it's going to be. And so at the time, I was working as a model, making a living at it, doing commercials. And I guess my son, who was about 11 at the time, he said, Dad, you could do that. Like TV is TV, And I kind of like made up let's just say, kind of a fictitious resume that I had experience. I got my foot in the door.
These things have to be done.
And man, was I terrible. I was really, really bad.
Nervous?
And it was in 1982 in Atlantic City, Playboy Hotel and Casino. And Brad Jacobs, who's now chief operating officer with Top Rank, actually hired me. And I keep telling him 42 years later, Brad, how much do I have to pay you to buy that tape? It was and destroy them all. But really bad. And 4 or 5 months later, I got another chance and made the most of it. Corrected a lot of mistakes.
And when did you first come up with the Immortal Line?
The reason I came up with it was because ring announcers started introducing all their pals on the boxing commission. You know, you go to a football game, they don't introduce the front office of the league, you know, before the start of the game. And so when you have the fighters come to the ring with all that music and excitement and energy, and then the ring announcer has to kill the crowd because they've been locked into this position of introducing the chairman, the commissioners, the board members, the president of the WBA, WBC, IBF, whatever, if it's a multi-belt fight, supervisors, doctors, judges, and referee, which you have to. So you've introduced 19, 20 people and killed the crowd. It's like just wiped out. So now to introduce the stars of the show, I wanted some kind of a hook that would get attention. And there's that famous line from the Indy 500, "Gentlemen, start your engines." And the crowd goes nuts because that means the action's about to start. So I wanted something to bring back some energy for the stars of the show, the fighters. And, you know, I tried, fasten your seatbelts, you know, ladies and gentlemen, man your battle station. And then crickets are, it was like, it was, you know, nothing happening. And the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali, used to get together with Drew Bundini Brown, his assistant trainer, and they would do this routine where he said, "Rumble, young man, rumble. Ah, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." And so I started to say, let's get ready to rumble. It wasn't anything like you hear today. It would be like, you know, let's get ready to rumble, 12 rounds of boxing. You know, I didn't have that sort of like a little bit of flair that you feel today. But it was something that let people know now you're going to meet the stars of the show. And that's what it was for. Not to bring attention to me. A lot of people think that's what it is. It's really for the fighters.
No, it's when you hear it, you know that it's go time. That's the point of it, isn't it? And you really let it hang in the air. You know, we know it's coming, and then you'll give it to us, and then you'll just give it a couple of seconds just to kind of just resonate. And that's
the beauty of it for me is, it's a registered trademark, of course, and protected. But to get to do it at the World Series or NFL playoffs or Stanley Cup championships and NBA finals, that sort of thing, over the last 35, 40 years, it's been pretty exciting because the fans react the same way.
It's a really, really kind of unique position. I mean, physical position that you occupy, standing in the middle of the ring, in the middle of a big arena when the lights are on you, but the lights everywhere else are down. I did it a couple of times a few years ago, and that just struck me immediately. I can't actually really see anybody, but the lights are on me and everybody can see me. It's like being on that side of a window where the light's on in the room, so you can't see on the window, out the window, but somebody outside could see in. And so if you're in the middle of a stadium, you've got, as you have been plenty of times, you've got 90,000+ people there. But when you're doing your thing, they're just kind of in the gathering gloom and you can't even really see them.
Right. You've experienced that.
It's weird.
And you know what? I think we've all seen that video of Freddie Mercury at Wembley where it's the sun hasn't gone down yet, and you see the crowd and you see how big it is when 80 and 90,000 people are in Wembley. And and you've experienced this too. For us, we don't really feel that crowd. We see the lights of the camera, you know, their phones and that sort of thing. But you hear this noise. And when you just really stop and think about how many people are out there, and it makes it even more exciting. But it is a strange feeling to be in the ring, not see the crowd, but feel it and feel the size of it. And then you look off and you see how far away AJ is walking to the ring, and you realize this place is big. And it's really, really exciting.
You're never tempted to give it the full Freddie Mercury, because he stood there, didn't he, at Live Aid, and what did he? It was at Dio, and he just hears it all come back from the crowd.
Exactly.
It's quite something. Do you still get nervous? Or does that change over time?
You know what?
Nervous energy.
I get nervous. I get more nervous doing something like this or doing a talk show or whatever than I do fighting. I get anxious. Like the anxiety kicks in because I'm really still a fan. And to feel all that energy from a big crowd, or or just the energy from a really unbelievable matchup that you know is good, just like we have coming up Saturday night and like we did the first time. It's I get like, oh yeah, you know, I get really excited. I enjoy it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean that's
It doesn't get old.
No, I mean I'm not surprised to hear you say that at all. Is the routine, the preparation, what you'll do in the minutes beforehand, the day of, is that still the same? Is that something you fine tuned and you just like it as it is?
I'm like sort of like, I like to do everything the day of as far as all of my preparation and notes and that sort of thing. And it kind of gets me just really amped up through the whole day. And, you know, I have to do it that way because there's always changes coming in anyway. With, wait a minute, this judge is out, or that, you know. But so for me, the day of the fight, the whole day is a lot of fun, a lot of energy there.
Last one. This must have happened. I've never noticed it, but we all have that moment of blind panic sometimes where we feel like we've lost our place, and it's the worst feeling in the world, isn't it?
Oh yeah, there are times, and you've probably experienced this, where I go absolutely stone cold blank, like, oh, I want to say something, and it's just not coming out. I know exactly what it is. I can't get it out of my mouth, or I can't get it, like, what's that name? What's that word? Whatever. And you think it's like you're dying on camera. Then you look at it later and it was only like half a second or something, but it feels like an eternity where you're trying to say a name and you can't think of it, and it's not on your notes. And yeah, I've had that happen.
Yeah, well, everyone's had that. And anyone who says they haven't had that.
I forgot one time to write the referee's name, Phil, and knew exactly who he was, looked at him and went, couldn't get it out. And I put the microphone, just tell me your name, man.
Everybody has that. Anyone who says they haven't had that is a liar. It's as simple as that.
Well, when you get older, it gets worse.
Yeah, but it is.
I mean, I can still tell you the starting lineup for the 1950 Philadelphia Phillies, but sometimes whatever happened, whatever I went to the refrigerator for, I'll stand there and stare and don't know what I went to get. So.
But it's a good thing to hear for anyone watching this who's a young ring announcer or any kind of broadcaster, that it still happens to the absolute best.
Sure.
No one's immune from it. You could kind of laugh about it after the event because you're right. It feels like you're standing there.
I
for
bet
about
that happens
half an hour.
more to you because you're doing a lot of stuff cold without notes when you're doing interviews and that sort of thing. Yeah, in the ring.
Does, yeah.
With me, at least, I have almost everything written down. But yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Okay, Michael, this has been great fun. Really, really good fun. Hopefully we'll do it again. Thanks very much for coming on.
We're going to have fun Saturday night.
We absolutely are.